A pleasant good morning to everyone. We have a guest from Netherlands, and Dr. Letty will be introducing our guest for today. Today is Wednesday, and again, we have a topic that will enhance your knowledge about our Philippine biodiversity. Take it away, Dr. Letty.
Hello, good morning, followers of Kwentong Likas Yaman. It is indeed a great pleasure to be with you once again, and really quite exciting because when we met our guest in the last conference in Sorsogon, I didn't expect to meet him there, but here he was tapping on my shoulder and hola! It's nice to see you again. A very warm person, a very good friend, long time knowing each other, working in the field, especially when we were invited in Palanan, Isabela, to release the juvenile crocodiles. And of course, Merline Van Weerd is the key person who made the birth of the Mabuwaya Foundation in Isabela. He started working here as part of the Plan International way back more than 20 years ago. And in 2003, they started working with the Mabuwaya Foundation, working through crocodile populations and also educating the local people, getting engaged in making them aware that there is a new discovered population of the Crocodilus mindorensis in Isabela, which is actually known to have started in Mindoro. But now, sadly though, that species of crocodile, which is a Philippine endemic species, is no longer found in Mindoro, although it is found in some other areas. So there is a great need for us to really conserve and protect the remaining habitats of these populations. And with great high respect, I know that it wasn't an easy job, but he was able to help out to equip the Filipinos or the Isabelinos in Isabela so that they would have their own, they would generate their very big love for the crocodile. And now it is a very successful NGO, conservation non-government organization that continues to thrive. And even one of the staff, Marites Balbas, is so blessed to have received the Whitley Award because of their efforts to conserve the Philippine crocodile. And of course, together with that is also conserving or knowing things about the other crocodile, since we only have two in the Philippines. So it's good to be asking him questions because we would look at how they went through, how they succeeded, and how are they going to continuously ensure that there is success in conserving our one and only Crocodilus mindorensis. Merline, you have the floor to greet our friends and our followers. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much, Doc Letty and Doc JD. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm actually in the Netherlands right now. I was in the Philippines until last week, but I had to go back here. And yeah, for me, it's still a morning here. It's a beautiful morning, and very happy to be in your show to share whatever I can about our work, Philippine Crocodile, and other work that the Mabuwaya Foundation is doing at the moment.
Okay, so thank you so much, Sir Merline, no, for your time. And my first question, since our topic is about the foundation that you established in Isabela, maybe you could share with us the story behind that establishment of the foundation, the Mabuwaya Foundation. Take it away.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So some people might question, why is this guy from the Netherlands working in the Philippines? Well, it all started with a large project which was funded by the Dutch government. At that time, the Dutch government was still funding conservation projects in the Philippines. And this was a big project implemented by Plan International in the Northern Sierra Madre, with the goal to establish the Northern Sierra Madre Natural Park. At that time, there was no management plan. The boundaries were not clear and not demarcated. and there were still some questions about the biodiversity of that area. The project was really Philippine run, but they couldn't find a biologist who wanted to work in Isabela at that time. This is
Mm-hmm.
1999, and there were very few biologists that had experience in the field in the Philippines, and many of them were, I think, already working for projects. So I was sent there. Not that I had that much experience in the Philippines because I'd never been there before, but I did have some experience working in tropical countries, and especially with training students and training co-workers in biodiversity surveys. So that was my job, and I set up a small team of local researchers, mostly forestry students, because there was no biology at that time in Isabela. And we started doing biodiversity surveys. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking with Arne Jensen, who later became a good friend, and he was heading Nordeco at that time. If you were, this is a long time ago, but I know that
Yeah,
Letty still remembers
I know. Yeah.
these times. Yeah, I even met you, Letty, then because I tried to visit several organizations to know more about Philippine biodiversity. So that's how our friendship started.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Arne Jensen told me we've just completed a big biodiversity survey project in the Northern Sierra Madre, and there's nothing anymore to discover for you. So I went home to Isabella a little bit disheartened. But within a few months, we found that there are still Philippine crocodiles in the Sierra Madre, and
Mm-hmm.
that was not known at that time. Um, at least not scientifically known. Of course, local people knew that there were crocodiles, fishermen and farmers and hunters. Um, and in fact, but the issue was that scientifically it was not known, and we made that known and started conserving Philippine crocodiles. But the large conservation project funded by the Dutch government ended in 2002, and at that time, there was no one who would continue crocodile conservation, and that was still very important. So we established the Mabuwaya Foundation, Mabuwaya, to continue Philippine crocodile conservation and research work in Isabela. And of course, at that time was a very small foundation, very limited funding,
Mm-hmm.
but through the past 20 years, because this year is our 20th anniversary, throughout the years we grew and became. We're not right now. We are not just focusing on crocodiles, but on
Other.
biodiversity and environmental conservation in general in the Northern Sierra Madre and Cagayan Valley.
So thank you for that story. No, so I'm amazed that you easily get adapted to the Philippines. No, considering that that time, it's your first time to come over, and yet you were able to establish the foundation. I mean, a group, no, a group already. So I'm just so happy that you liked our country, and
Yes,
till now.
it was never the goal to stay forever in the Philippines. I my job was basically for 3 years, and then I would go somewhere else. But yeah, as you mentioned, I really like the Philippines, and I
Thank you.
also thought it's important to continue working there with my colleagues. So yeah.
My next question is, can you tell us or share with us the vision mission of the Mabuwaya Foundation?
Yes, yes. Of course, we have those formal words in our manual of operation, but our vision is to create a healthy environment for people and nature to thrive. So there is very specifically mentioning people as well. And basically, that's what we do. So we try to work with local communities and convince people that it's important to conserve their environment because they depend on it. Um, and our mission is basically to do that in Region 2. So we work mainly in Isabela and Cagayan province. in that very important forest mountain area, the northern Sierra Madre and in Cagayan Valley, to try to convince people to conserve the environment.
And how did that work come to be? How did the people react to you along the way?
Well, but I think most people now, at least, are convinced that environmental conservation is important, right?
Mhm.
But when you talk about crocodiles, it's a bit of a different story because many people find crocodiles scary. They
Yeah.
think that crocodiles are dangerous. And of course, crocodiles are large predators, so you have to be careful when you are near crocodiles. But Philippine crocodiles are relatively small and they do not attack people unprovoked, and they do not eat people. Right? As you mentioned earlier, there are two crocodile species in the Philippines, and the saltwater crocodile, Crocodylus porosus, is the largest crocodile in the world, and this is a potentially very dangerous crocodile for people. They eat people. Um, so it's our message is always a bit complicated because we have to explain that the Philippine crocodile is not like that. It's
It's a
much
nice
smaller.
crocodile.
It's a
It's a
nice
sweet
crocodile.
crocodile.
We always say it's a typical Philippine crocodile because it's small and shy and very friendly. And then Tess would add, and very beautiful, like me, but I won't say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful, really. Actually, see, this is a beautiful smiling crocodilus baby with the eggs
Yeah.
all around it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's really looking at us. See that? It's looking
yeah,
at the,
it is.
yeah.
Yeah. So what were your general challenges in going through all of this process of establishing the crocodilus crocodilus conservation there in Isabela, as well as getting them concerned and involved. Maybe I guess they are now committed to protecting the crocodiles, right? And maybe I would also presume that they have come to be proud of the Crocodilus poroso, Mindorensis in their vicinity. I mean, there could
Yeah.
have there is now. I would think that there is now a great change in attitude among the people in Isabela. By the way, I'm from Isabela, huh? I'm from Santiago. Okay, that's why I'm proud that there's a Crocodilus mindorensis there, and people are taking care of it. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the challenges you mentioned, well, uh, yeah, it's the image of the crocodile. That is the hardest thing that we have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to provide good information.
mhm.
Um, it's actually the local communities and the people that sort of knew that there were crocodiles were not it was not so hard to convince them because they have experience with the crocodile and they know that Philippine crocodiles do not harm you. So when we started our work, we did lots of interviews with fishermen also to find out where there were still crocodiles. And we found that the municipality of San Mariano was
Mhm.
really the key area for Philippine crocodiles in Isabela. Um, so the people that knew the crocodiles were not scared of them. And some indigenous communities even believe that the crocodiles are their friends or their ancestors or are protecting the forest. Um, so that was not so hard. It was much harder to convince politicians. Um, because for two reasons. One, of course, politicians in the Philippines do not want to be associated with crocodile. Di ba? Buwaya,
And the
the
crocodiles
word,
don't want to be associated with them. If
yeah.
they
Also, it's
only had a
unfair to the
choice.
crocodiles. Yeah, right. Yeah. But also, politicians are concerned about the safety of their citizens, and that makes sense. So we had to convince them that crocodiles and people can actually live together if you
Mm-hmm.
take the certain precautions. Um, Yeah.
So Merlin, I have a question with regards to the number of the species of the population there in Isabela. Do you have
Mhm.
a estimate of how many of them are there in the area? And I was just wondering how, I mean, are they in the wild? I mean, living in a particular marsh, or is it, or are they living? So I'm just curious about how you go near to them, and how do you go about your activities. So you train community people to look after these crocodiles. Can you expound on the activities that you are doing there as part of your conservation efforts?
Sure. Yeah. Sorry. So, um, if you want to count crocodiles, that's not so easy because the crocodiles are very, very shy and
Mm-hmm.
they're mainly nocturnal animals. So, what we do is to find out where crocodiles still live. First, we do interviews. We talk with the people that know the field intimately, and mostly fishermen, and they led us to the areas that there where there are still crocodiles in San Mariano, Isabela. So at that time, more than 20 years ago, we found three rivers that still had
Oh,
Philippine
rivers.
crocodiles. Yeah, and these rivers are all connected to each other. So that's one sort of one population. But downstream of those rivers, there are now quite a lot of people living. So those three rivers became sort of a little bit isolated populations of Philippine crocodile. Very small. At that time, we only found 20 crocodiles.
Mm-hmm.
So when we started, there were only about 20 crocodiles left in San Mariano. And right now, there are about 100. So the
Oh,
population has really increased over
increasing.
the
Oh.
years. Yeah, but of course, 100 is still very, very low number. If I, if at conferences with crocodile specialists, if I am sharing that we now have 100 Philippine crocodiles in the wild in Isabela, they look at me, 100, that's nothing. That's such a low number. Your population is not viable. And then I explained, yeah, but we started with 20, so that's a five-fold increase. And
Yeah.
all right, but you see, it's still very rare. Um, and to find them is
What
not so easy, Liba.
what
So what we, yeah, sorry, go
My
ahead.
question is, what intervention did you do to increase the population of these crocodiles? You say before it's 20, now it became 100. So what was the effective strategy that you do to increase the population?
Yeah. So first we needed to know what the threats are to crocodiles. Well, at that time, crocodiles were still regularly killed by people and sometimes also
Mm-hmm.
caught. So small crocodiles were caught by fishermen and sold, which is illegal, of course, but it happened. So we focused on that. Also, their habitat was not of good quality
Mm-hmm.
because they share these rivers with people, and there's a lot of pollution. There's a lot of illegal fishing, like fishing with electricity. So we also try to convince people that that is not legal and also not good for the ecosystem. Uh, and then we worked with communities to protect the most important areas as crocodile sanctuaries. So
Oh,
the barangays and proclaimed these sanctuaries themselves.
wow.
Later on, that was reinforced by the local government. So there are now 8 local crocodile sanctuaries in San Mariano, and these are, yeah, effectively protecting the crocodiles. I must say there are still threats because crocodiles live in mostly lowland areas and not high up in the mountains where there are very few people. They live in areas where human population is also high. So
Mm-mm.
we constantly have to work on conflict management and also making sure that everyone respects the crocodiles and
Mhm.
follows the rules and regulations of those sanctuaries.
Does this mean that in your 8 centuries, the 100 individuals are distributed among those 8 centuries?
Yes, mostly. But what we see now is that that some crocodiles also leave the sanctuaries. These sanctuaries are just in the wild, right? There's no fence, so the crocodiles can just also leave those sanctuaries.
Maybe
Um,
they be
and
there.
we increasingly see that there are also crocodiles in other areas, in other rivers. So when we started, we had 3 sanctuaries, and now we keep on lobbying for the proclamation of more sanctuaries if we identify new areas with crocodiles.
Mhm.
So
Are
apart
these
from an
rivers? Yeah, I was just about to ask if these centuries are in the river system that is connected to the Cagayan River. Are these
yes,
river, streams of branching of the Cagayan River?
yeah, they
Mm.
are. We did some research in entire Cagayan Valley to see if
Mm-mm.
there are still crocodiles, and we found that historically there were Philippine crocodiles in all the tributaries of Cagayan River.
Oh, mm,
Including in not just in Isabela, but also in Cagayan
in
and
Cagayan.
in Nueva Vizcaya, and also on the other side, so in the Eastern Cordillera,
Mm-hmm.
Chico River, all those river systems had crocodiles until not that long ago. There are still old people that remember seeing crocodiles in those river systems.
But now they
But
are
it's
gone.
yeah, but it's always the upland tributary. So not really high in the mountains, but also not really down in Cagayan Valley itself or in Cagayan River. So we think there used to be saltwater crocodiles quite far upstream in Cagayan River as well. Maybe even reaching Isabela.
Also, there
If you
seems to have been a mix of the saltwater crocodiles and the freshwater crocodiles in the past. Like since we see the Porosos in Reina Mercedes, and these are in the coastal areas, right?
yeah,
In the marine areas.
yeah.
There used to be kind of a mix of them, and it could have been possible that the reason why the Mindorensis could have been decimated in some areas is because of this mixing. There must have been, since the Porosos is a threatening one, they tend to have tried to kill every crocodile that they saw, not knowing that one is a nice Filipino crocodile and the other is a foreign. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be, yeah. Well, they sort of exclude each other, the Philippine crocodile and the saltwater crocodile. So in areas where you have saltwater crocodiles, you usually don't have Philippine crocodiles because they are much smaller and they are
Mhm.
sort of outcompeted by the saltwater crocodiles. But you see similar pattern in other areas, like in Agusa Marsh or Mindanao. So there are
Mm-mm.
saltwater crocodiles in the marsh. Lolong, famous Lolong, was a saltwater crocodile living in
Yes.
Agusa Marsh.
Yes.
But but historically there were Philippine crocodiles in all the
Yes.
tributaries of Agusa Marsh. Uh, Also very rare now in Mindanao. You see the same in Liguasa Marsh, saltwater crocodiles in the marsh itself, the lowland marsh, and then Philippine crocodiles in the tributaries. Same
Tributary.
historically in Mindoro.
Hmm.
So, Diba, you used to have saltwater crocodiles in Nauhan Lake
Yes.
and Philippine crocodiles in the rivers feeding into the lake. So there's really a
All
clear
are gone now in
distinction.
Mindoro.
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah.
So
But
Merline, I'm curious about the biology of the crocodile. Can you describe, I mean, their mating season, their reproductive, a bit of their reproductive biology?
yeah. So, well, back to that habitat. So Philippine crocodiles are really a river species. They don't usually live in lakes. They live in rivers, quite fast flowing rivers, but not really high up in the mountain. There are some records from 800 meters by Rainier Manalo. But that's sort of the upper range of this species. And most Philippine crocodiles live, at least in San Mariano, they live at altitudes of between 200 and say 350 meters above sea level. in rivers and in small creeks, and they and small ponds or marshes that are found next to those rivers, and this is where they breed. So adult crocodiles would live in these fast-flowing rivers where I think they can find enough food, fish mainly, and maybe larger mammals like wild pigs or deer.
Mm.
Um, and then they make their nest in along very small creeks with stagnant water or small ponds where it is safe for hatchlings to grow up. Because if these hatchlings would be in the main rivers, they would be washed away by the currents. So these creeks and small ponds are very important for nesting. And Philippine crocodiles make mate in January, February, at least in northern Luzon, and they make their nest in March, April, and then an incubation time of about 60 to 80 days, depending on the temperature. So they would hatch in July and August.
Mm.
Um, and they make mound nests. These are large heaps of vegetation. But interestingly, they also make hole nests. And a hole nest is really a hole dug in the ground by the female, and the eggs are deposited in that hole with vegetation. And
Mm.
there's only one other species that uses both of these strategies. Um, I believe it's the Orinoco crocodile. So that's very interesting. The maximum clutch size that we have been recorded in the wild is 26 eggs.
Wow.
Uh, and younger females would lay less eggs. So they would start with only 7 or, eight
Mhm.
eggs. And then when they grow older, they will lay more eggs, but not that much. If you compare that with the saltwater crocodile, that can easily lay 80 eggs, it's a big difference.
Mhm.
Um,
So,
yeah.
what's the lifespan of a crocodile, sir? Lifespan.
No, yeah, but that's hard to say for the wild because Philippine crocodiles have not been studied that well. But I think in captivity, at least 40 to 50 years.
Wow. They
Yeah.
live. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, crocodiles can live quite long, maybe even longer under optimal conditions.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Their hatching success, the eggs, like when you have 26 eggs, how many would be the average successful hatchlings emerging?
Yeah, we
100%?
it's we've tried to study this in the wild.
Mm.
For nests, interestingly, for nests with a lot of eggs, so with more than 20 eggs, the hatching rate or the survival rate is quite high.
Mm-hmm.
For nests with less eggs, the survival rate is usually lower.
Mm.
Uh, this maybe has to do with the age and size of the female crocodile that lays the
Yeah.
eggs. So larger, older females apparently uh, are healthier or lay eggs that have a higher survival chance.
Mhm.
But it all depends also on the nest itself. Some nests are lost completely because they are flooded, or nowadays because they are raided by people. Sometimes they are raided by monitor lizards or rats, and then you can lose an entire nest, of course.
Mm-hmm. So, can you distinguish? How can you distinguish a male from a female crocodile? Are
So in the
they
wild, if you see a crocodile in a river, you cannot distinguish them. There are no external features that
okay?
distinguish them. But if you catch a crocodile and you have it in hand, you
Yes.
can examine the cloaca, the
Oh.
reptiles,
Mm-hmm.
and Philippine crocodile. All crocodiles have the male have an internal penis, which
Mm-hmm.
you can feel and see if you examine the cloaca.
Lumaka. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
So,
it's
but you need to catch them. You need to have them in hand to be able
oh
to tell the sex.
yeah. So even in size, even in external features, you cannot tell.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's
Did you
good. Good.
exhibit some courtship behavior, like when you have been observing them during the breeding season? is there some kind of a courtship in between the males and the females, even if you don't, if you can't distinguish between
Yeah,
the two?
yeah. Well, there is. They make funny sounds when they are in courtship. They make bubbles by sort of vibrating. I don't know exactly what vibrates, but you see bubbles in the water. Uh,
Mm.
and the crocodiles would be sort of together in the water prior to mating. And of course, they also mate in the water. Um, yeah, so there is some courtship behavior,
I
and it's
haven't heard the
interesting.
sound of a crocodile. How does it sound?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are quite vocal. Crocodiles are more vocal than you would think, but it's a sort of a rumbling sound, uh,
Rumbling.
and then yeah, and small crocodiles make very cute sounds. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure if I can imitate that. My colleagues are much better than I, but it's
In
like this.
imitating.
Hmm, 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 hmm.
Oh, okay.
For the small ones.
Yeah,
For
the
the
small
small
ones. And they even do that when they're still in the egg. So if you have a crocodile nest with full grown hatchlings still in the egg, you can hear those sounds. So they
Inside the
communicate.
egg.
Yeah, yeah, and
Really?
they
Wow.
communicate with each other and maybe also with the mother
Oh,
crocodile. Yeah.
I'm about to hatch. I'm about to hatch.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what happens is that they all hatch at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we once were
amazing.
lucky. We were monitoring a nest, so we knew that there was a nest, and we opened the nest to very carefully check if the eggs were still there. And we heard those sounds, and at that moment, one hatchling hatched, broke through the eggshell, and came out. That's the photograph that's on our webpage as well.
I the yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then what happened is that all those eggs started hatching all at the same time, and all those baby crocodiles started making those sounds from within the egg and
Oh, so
outside
they
the
have a
egg.
synchronized kind of hatching
Yeah,
time. That's so
yeah.
nice. So you
And it
have
was tri-
videos of this? How, were you able
we
to
do.
take videos of this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We were very lucky. So we filmed, I was there, I took photographs, and we actually had a student at the moment who was making a film. So she was there with a good camera and she was able to
Wow, that's
film
great.
it as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And interestingly, uh,
Let's make a movie of the crocodiles.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure, I would love to. Yeah.
Philippine endemic species.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Wow.
would be great.
But so at that time when we opened the nest, that was actually the trigger for those hatchlings to hatch. So we were assuming at that time that maybe in the wild, mother crocodiles will do that. They will open the
Mhm.
nest and assist with hatching. But we did not have any evidence for that
Mm-hmm.
until this year, because this year we placed camera traps, or how do you call it, trail cameras,
Mhm.
next to wild nests. And we were able to film the behavior of a female crocodile who was taking care of the nest, and it was helping the hatchlings hatch by taking the eggs in her mouth and
I
helping them sort
see.
of open. And then later on, when the hatchlings were there, she would take a hatchling in her mouth and bring them to the river. So there is maternal care in Philippine crocodiles.
Yeah, she would carry the hatchling into her mouth and bring it to the river for
Oh,
Yeah,
the swim. Oh, that's nice.
very,
yeah.
That's
Looks a
very,
bit scary because it looks like she's eating them, but she's not. She's
yeah.
very carefully putting them in her mouth and assisting them to go to
So
the
they
river.
really put them the eggs inside the whole nest, generally, or is this a general practice to have a whole nest?
Well, that's interesting. So they use both whole and mound nests, and we
Mm,
we we think that the same female would actually use both strategies, maybe based on her experiences in prior years. So a
mhm,
mound nest is usually a better nest um, but it's easier to be found and to be predated upon. So if
Mhm.
a mound nest is very visible, and of
Mhm.
course people, but also monitor lizards or dogs, pigs, rats could more easily find such a nest and predate on the eggs. Whereas a whole nest is really in the ground, so much more
Mhm.
difficult to detect. But
Mhm.
if those eggs are really in the soil, we have found nests where those eggs were really sort of crushed by the impact of the soil, especially if it's very dry. The clay,
Mhm.
if it's a clay substrate, will become very, very hard and dry, which is not good for the eggs. So
Mm.
perhaps she's using both strategies depending on her experiences, and both do work. Yeah.
And there is only one breeding season per year.
Yeah, the
Yes.
same
Yeah.
to us.
Okay. But luckily, it doesn't fall on a, I mean, the eggs do not fall on the rainy season. That's a dry season, right?
It's the dry season when the nest is made,
Yeah.
so April, May, and
Mm.
then the
They
onset of
hatch
the
by
rainy
July.
season. Yeah.
Yeah.
So of course you need high temperatures in the
Mm.
nest,
Mm.
and you need the vegetation needs to start fermenting a bit to
Uh-uh.
generate enough warmth for the eggs to hatch.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, the timing is perfect. At the end of the dry season, the start, you would have rain showers from time to time. So it's humid, it's warm, perfect conditions for eggs to incubate. Um, and this of course, if you this could not happen in say November or December because it's too cold
Yes.
in northern Luzon. Northern Luzon, well, you know that Letty, it's pretty
Yeah.
cold in Isabela in December and
Yeah,
January.
we always used sweaters during the December months in
Yeah,
Isabela. It's always cool and nice, but
Mm.
there's not much of heavy rains. It's just like it goes with the fogs and moist, cool condition. And
yeah,
it's really something I miss in Isabela for those months, no? The Burman is nice there.
yeah,
I was wondering if we have only of about 100 of this, and if I'm correct, this is the only wildlife wild group or wild population of Philippine crocodile in the Philippines. Will that be enough, or how long will you be able to achieve a certain population size that could help recolonize areas where they used to be? Or is
yeah.
that going to be an impossible dream?
No, no dream is impossible. So
Hmm?
um, it's there is another population in Mindanao. So we know for
Mm,
sure that there's still reproducing Philippine crocodiles in Liguasa Marsh.
okay.
Um, and there are well, but it's a difficult area to
Yeah.
work in. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's not very safe. But we've been working with the University of Southern Mindanao,
Mm,
Professor Pomares and his team, and they've done some survey work there. So we know for sure, and even recently there are records of small Philippine crocodiles there. So we
mm.
know that they're still there, but we don't know how many there are in that
Oh,
area.
okay.
Sir
But
Martin, I know I'm curious about their food preferences. Do they have favorites? I mean, you said they eat fish and deer and some other mammals or big mammals, but do they have a favorite? I mean, when it comes to fish, for example, do
yeah, well, crocodiles are, in general, crocodiles are opportunistic, so they will
Mhm.
eat whatever they can get, uh, and their prey size increases obviously with size of the crocodile. So small crocodiles, we've trying to study this through observations.
mm-hmm.
Small hatchling crocodiles and small juveniles mainly eat insects,
Hmm.
um, like dragonflies, etc., but also snails. So small snails that are found on logs or on the side
Hmm.
of ponds or creeks, which are easy to get for crocodiles. And then when they grow, they start eating larger prey, including birds, water birds, fish, any fish really that they can catch, and then on to larger mammals later on. And crocodiles do not distinguish between wild pigs and domestic pigs. So
Mhm.
that creates some problems in some of the
No
areas where we
problem.
work. Yeah, because farmers are not too happy when their pigs are eaten, of course. But in a study a few years ago, we had an American student, Joey Brown, and
Mm.
he conducted a study on diets of crocodiles by catching them and by pumping out their stomach content and examining that stomach content. It's quite a brutal way to study this, both for the crocodile and for the researcher, because it smells horrible. Um, but it is the best way, of course, to study crocodile diets. And he found that even in adult crocodiles, so larger crocodiles, snails make up a large proportion of the diet.
Mhm.
Now, and including, and that's interesting, the cohol, the golden apple snail, which
Oh,
is a pest.
Wow, we
it's
should
a
bring them
pest.
more
It
in
is
the rice fields.
Yeah.
it's a pain. Yeah.
So the Philippine crocodile is actually helping rice farmers to get rid of a pest that is
It's
threatening their rice. Yeah,
good.
the cohol. Yeah, and also rats. These are the introduced rats, like
Yeah.
Polynesian rat and brown rat, and we found that they are also part of the diet. So crocodiles are helping in pest control in the Philippines.
Mhm.
Mm.
That's very good information so that people will really appreciate them and not be afraid,
Oh,
right?
yes. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
actually thinking, I'm thinking about bringing back the Crocodilus mindorensis to Mindoro.
Yeah. Well, that was part of your last question, Letty. Is the population large enough? With
Hmm.
100 individuals in northern Luzon and an unknown population in Liguasan Marsh. By the way, I don't believe that there are thousands of crocodiles in Liguasan Marsh, more like maybe hundreds as well. So Philippine crocodiles are really very rare.
Rare. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but what we see in San Mariano is that with the increase of the population in the wild, their distribution also increases. So
Hmm.
we now have crocodiles not just in San Mariano, but also in adjacent municipalities, Benito Soliven,
Mhm.
San Guillermo, and Jones. So we see that they are able to, yeah, to increase their own distribution.
Hmm.
Um, but our dream is to also reintroduce crocodiles in other historical sites. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Mindoro would be wonderful, of course. Why not?
Yeah, why not? MBCFI is there.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we can think about that and consider that in the near future.
Okay.
yeah.
So, Marlene, may I ask about your funding? I mean, where do you usually get money you need to finance your activities in the foundation?
Yeah. So when we started, it was hard to get money. If you're a small foundation without a track record, you can apply for small research funds, say $2,500. What is that? 100,000 pesos, maybe. Right? So um, at that time, it was difficult to find enough funding. But the fact that we were working with a critically endangered endemic species
Mm-hmm.
and a crocodile for which there had not been much attention
Mhm.
made it easier for us to get funding. And we started with the Conservation Leadership Program,
Mhm.
CLP. And so many foundations in the Philippines started with CLP funding. Isla Biodiversity, Catala Foundation, well, there are others as well. So that was an important source of funding. At that time, it was still called the BP Conservation Fund, English, UK based. Um, and at the moment, we are lucky because we exist for 20 years. We have a good track record. We are a little bit famous. And that makes it a lot easier to get funding. because people trust that you spend their money wisely. So
Yeah.
right now we get funding from USAID, for example, in the Philippines, the Inspire program. We receive funding from several larger donors, Synchronicity Earth in the United Kingdom, the Whitley Foundation, because my colleague Tess was a winner of a Whitley Award, and the Whitley Foundation also continues funding our work. Um, and we have an agreement with all the zoos in the world that have Philippine crocodiles, and they
Mm.
sponsor us. Not all of them all the time, but all of them sort of in America they have fundraisers, and
Mm.
in Europe there are several zoos that have Philippine crocodiles, and they give us a donation every year that enables us to continue our work.
Wow. That's very good to know, Sir Marline. So my other question is, can you share with us your future plans for the foundation? What other activities or researches that you're going to do in the future for crocodiles?
Yeah. Well, actually, we developed a model to conserve crocodiles using well, really focusing on communities, community-based crocodile conservation, and for more than 10 years, we've also been applying that same model for other species in Northeast Luzon. So we have a sea turtle conservation program. We have a program to conserve the critically endangered Isabella oriole, named after the province of Isabella. Also, very rare species, only found at the moment in Isabella and Cagayan provinces.
Mm-hmm.
And we are implementing forest conservation programs. So yeah, our work has really expanded. We're not just working on Philippine crocodile conservation, but on environmental conservation in general in the Northern Sierra Madre. And we're the only local environmental NGO that is working in that area, that is really based in Region 2. So yeah, that's our future. Working, trying to conserve forests and wetlands, doing biodiversity research, and especially making sure that there's a large environmental education component in Region 2 to convince people to conserve nature.
Okay, so you have a lot of activities ahead. So more power to
I will
Mabuwaya.
apply to Mabuwaya.
Well, we throughout the years we've been working together, Letty. So, Diva, I hope
Yeah,
we
of
can
course.
continue
Yeah.
to do that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
very
I,
close to
I,
my heart. Oh,
I
what
think,
happened
I
to
think,
wait, what happened to the small ones that we released in the field coming from the crocodile farm in Palawan? Were
yeah,
these monitored and
yes,
yeah?
yeah. But unfortunately, that project is not a success. So
Mm,
these were crocodiles that were bred in Palawan, in
mm,
the Crocodile Farm Institute, now
mm,
Palawan Wildlife Rescue and Conservation Center, Philippine crocodiles, and we released them in another area. This is on the other side of the Sierra Madre Mountains, diba? So
yeah.
it's separate from the wild population
Mm,
in Cagayan Valley. We introduced them in a lake, and then well, now we know that lakes are not the preferred habitat of Philippine crocodiles. They are a riverine species. So the habitat was wrong. And what happened is that those crocodiles were not really fit. So they had not been properly fed at the institute, and also they did not really know how to
survive.
take care of themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So we now know that if you release crocodiles, you first have to do a soft release. You have to
yeah.
provide conditions that are like the wild, but still in captivity, so that they learn how to hunt, etc. And then you can release them. So we learned a lot from that program, but it is a failure because all those crocodiles died eventually. Um, and they also went to, they went looking for food because they were starving. So they
Uh-uh.
went to the houses of people with
Oh,
pictures of crocodiles in houses, in boats. Um, and they had been accustomed to being fed by people. So they associated people with food.
good.
Yeah. So
Oh, okay.
a very good learning experience, but it's a pity that all those crocodiles eventually died. So
Yeah,
there are no,
because yeah, I was thinking about that in the crocodile farm, since the all the crocs that generate from the captive breeding do not have much space to move on, and they are treated like, you know, dependents. They simply depend on what people give them. They actually are not good survivors. You know? They cannot thrive very well under natural conditions. And
yeah,
yes, I would agree with you that training them prior to release is very, very necessary for their survival.
yeah, exactly.
Then the Palawan crocodile farm should know about that. So they should increase their area and generate, you know, is it still
Well,
alive? The crocodile farm in Palawan, are you still associated with them? Not
we're still in touch with them.
anymore.
Yeah. But this is what the crocodile farmers took up. So the Crocodilus porosus Philippines, the group where Rainier and Manalo is working. Um, they um, they did this. So they raised Philippine crocodiles in larger sort of
Mm.
fenced areas, but more wild areas.
Mm.
And they also have a reintroduction project for the species on Surigao Island.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah. So, but yeah, I think in the future more Philippine crocodiles could be released in historical distribution sites, using that knowledge that we now have on how you would properly prepare crocodiles for the wild.
Yeah, I guess we've done 1 hour already. I just want have one last question before we ask JD for our surprise gift for you. Um, how long would you do you envision Mabuwaya to be working there for the successful, integration of the and protection of the Philippine crocodile?
I have no idea. I mean, ideally, of course, we would not be needed anymore. We would not be necessary anymore.
Mhm.
But the reality is that Philippine crocodiles are still very, very rare. The threats, although in San Mariano they are pretty well protected, but even now, sometimes crocodiles are still being killed.
Mm.
There is not enough response to that.
Mm.
So there's still a lot of work to be done, especially for us to lobby for protection by
Okay.
local governments, by DNR.
Yeah.
I'm happy that we have a good working relationship with DNR. They are actually involved in most of the activity or all of the activities that we implement. But still, we are sort of the, how do you call that? The pusher. We have to push for this, and we
Mhm.
have to lobby for this to make it happen. So yeah, as long as that is the case, we need to be there.
Yeah, I think so. I think I also agree that it hasn't reached a kind of plateau of stability that it could be sustained, or it can be, although there are still so much research things to be done. I just feel that we still need more action people involved in the process, and
Yeah,
that will include people like you, or more people, more Filipinos that you have trained in the area. Not
yeah,
only this, but many others should be involved there. Yeah.
yeah, and that's the good thing. I have very passionate colleagues. Tess, Balbas, Bernard Tarun, Amante Yok Yok. There are more. We are more than 10 people at the moment in Mabuwaya, and they're all very passionate about conservation, including crocodile conservation. And we work a lot with communities. We have sanctuary guards on the ground. These are all community members who are also protecting the crocodiles and are involved in monitoring. So you can see that there is a large group of people who are concerned about crocodiles. Uh, yeah, and before COVID, we had an annual festival in San Mariano, the Croc Festival, you can see that there is all the schools of San Mariano would compete with costumes and dances about crocodiles, and there were more than 40,000 people that participated in those festivals.
Wow.
So we want to revive that, but it shows that there is a broad, support for crocodile conservation in San Mariano, and people are really proud of their crocodile.
Okay. So thank you for those many things that you have shared with us. It's really, there's so much more, and I would like to invite everyone that they should visit your is this your website, so that they can know more about what you have been doing and what they can possibly contribute for the sustenance of the organization, as well as the research projects that you are doing. But time has to end, and I would ask JD to say something with her surprise blast.
So bear with my English, Sir Marline, but here is the point, and the title is the Mabuwaya Foundation Incorporated. No? What is MF or Mabuwaya Foundation? As Pinoy, upon hearing, we can have a notion. Buwaya is the key since it is crocodile as known, not that kind of animal that humans can get along. Meaning they eat their prey alive. They are ferocious and are thus wild. Humans need not intrude in their habitats, leave them alone in their own rights. So in this episode of Kwentong Likas Yaman, we feature a guest from foreign land. Mr. Merlin Van Weerd is the dedicated one who took the time to share online. Sir Merlin Van Weert took fancy in our endemic crocodile. One reason why Mabuwaya Foundation came to life started way back in the year 2003 to conserve and protect for sustainability. There had been so many accomplishments. Reproductive biology of crocodile was studied, along with behavior and other characteristic traits. Community-based crocodile conservation be also promoted. At this point, let us all be grateful to Sir Merline Van Weerd, who passionately dedicated time, expertise, and resources in order to conserve and preserve our crocodile endemic species, which will serve as his legacy for the Philippine biodiversity. That is my point for you, Sir Merline.
Wow,
You like it?
beautiful.
Thank you for that. Just
Wow,
compose.
did, did you write this during the past hour?
Yeah, was no, I actually I composed that this morning and I didn't know your surname. So I was asking Ma'am Letty but was not able to get the answer. But I saw your surname just this interview.
Yes,
Thank you so much also. So can
that
you
is
share
really
with us your inspirational message for our followers of Kwentong Likas Yaman?
sure. I'll do my best. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for that beautiful poem. It's. I'm really honored by it. About my surname, my name is a bit strange in the Netherlands. Weert means it's a name of a place. So Van means from. So it means that my forefathers came from the place Weert. But of course, in English, Weert and Weird are very near to each other. So I try to avoid using my surname, and you can just call me Merlijn. I always
Okay.
say to everyone, yeah. So, yeah, inspirational message. So, thank you very much for having me. I would like to invite everyone to, well, visit our website and our Facebook page, but also to visit San Mariano in Isabela. there is a Philippine Crocodile Conservation Center there, which is a visitor center where people can learn more about the Philippine crocodile and about the biodiversity of the Sierra Madre. And we actually do have some crocodiles there in captivity as well, so people can see crocodiles and learn more about them. Um, yeah, if I look at my own journey, I never knew that I would still be working in the Philippines when I first went there almost 25 years ago. But I fell in love with the country, with the biodiversity, with the people, and setting up a foundation was a very, how do you call it, meaningful and learnful experience for me, continuing this work. I do it as a volunteer. I'm not earning money with it, but there's so much to to be gotten from doing volunteer work and following your heart and doing what you think is important. So I would urge everyone to do that. Follow your heart. If you think you cannot make a living from biodiversity research or biodiversity conservation, yeah, maybe it's hard, but follow your heart,
Yeah.
and you will have so much more than just money if you do that. And there's always a way to earn a living if you become a good scientist or a good conservationist. There are
Mhm.
always organizations that will want to hire you. So especially for young people that might be listening, students, yeah, um, put in the energy, put in your enthusiasm for biodiversity research and conservation in the Philippines, because it's needed and it's also very fulfilling for yourself.
Wow.
Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much. And the Philippines is lucky to have you. No, we all Filipinos are appreciative of what you're doing for our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for having me in the Philippines. Yeah,
Okay. So
Yeah, it would be indeed a great honor to have you, Merline. And I was just so glad that we met in Sorsogon again. And I really wish you could be, of course, you have your freedom, but I really wish the Philippines will still stay in your heart and you will always be welcome here, especially in Isabela. I hope one day I can bring my students to your office for a field trip
yeah.
and let's
yeah.
go and
And we
see.
can go to Netherlands. Just a joke.
Well,
Okay. So
we have no crocodiles here in the Netherlands, so
just for, traveling. Okay. So thank you so much. And it's the end of our interview. Until next episode of Kwentong Likas Yaman. Happiness!
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Marline.